Exposed. 3 sinister, true accounts of haunted encounters that will haunt you forever. The house was unsettling from the start. Its towering frame leaned ominously, shadows weaving through the gnarled trees that surrounded it like a shroud. Claire hesitated at the front door, heart pounding, pulse racing. She could almost hear whispers in the chilling wind that cut through the air like a knife. "What have I done?" she muttered under her breath. But hope flickered inside her. For her son Ethan, they needed to escape a past filled with uncertainty and chaos. They moved in, leaving behind their old life, but instead of comfort, Claire found herself swallowed by an encroaching darkness. The first night, the floorboards creaked like a chorus of haunted souls beneath her feet. A draft pulled through the corridors, chilling her bones and making her second-guess every noise. Was it just the house settling, or was something else lurking? She shook her head, attributing it to the stress from her exhausting shifts at the diner. But that would soon change. In the attic, dusty old photographs revealed eerie glimpses into lives once lived, smiling faces that held secrets and shadows lurking just beyond the frame. There was a man who seemed to watch, a twisted grin creeping just near the garden. What had this house seen? The photos didn't just document a forgotten reality. They held pregnancy and death, prosperity and despair. Each revelation sent goosebumps across her skin. Claire's newfound friendships with the neighbors began to feel like a cruel joke. At first, their smiles softened her anxiety, but as she shared her discoveries, their expressions morphed. Concern turned to unease. Eyes darted away. What were they hiding? Then one stormy night, she heard Ethan's screams tearing through the silence. "Mom, he's outside!" he cried, shivering as he pointed at the window where the silhouette of the ominous figure stared back. Panic surged through Claire. She rushed to his side, heart hammering, desperate to reassure him. "It's just a bad dream." But as she turned, the figure remained. A dark shape in the rain-soaked glass, cold and malevolent. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The tension outside climbed. Townsfolk started casting wary glances her way. Conversations paused as she approached. Whispers float around like shadows. Every smile felt like a lie. Claire became consumed with dread, wondering if she had stumbled into a trap. Every creak in the house felt personal, like a taunt. Did her own neighbors hold the key to the horrors hidden within these walls? As days turned into restless nights, paranoia clawed at her mind. A text message from an unknown number blinked ominously in the dim light of her phone. "Leave, before it's too late." Conflicted, she fought against the anxiety gripping her, but the reality behind the warning seeped into her consciousness like poison. Desperation clawed at her as she sank deeper into the web of her new life. Who could she trust? Could Ethan survive the sinister secrets stitched into the fabric of their newfound home? The walls creaked ominously as the darkness tightened its grip, leaving Claire grappling with the chilling question, did the house hold her captive? Or was it the neighborhood that stared back with wicked intent? The air had thickened since Ethan's scream pierced the night. Claire's heart raced as she held her son close, their breaths echoing in the sudden silence of the room. She peered out the window again, daring herself to confront the ominous figure. But the rain-soaked glass revealed nothing. The shadow had vanished. Was it ever really there? Her mind reeled, the edges of sanity fraying. "Mom," Ethan whimpered, his small hands trembling. "What if it comes back?" She stroked his hair. doing her best to mask her own fear. "It won't, baby. We're safe inside." But the confidence in her voice crumbled as her eyes surveyed the dimly lit room around them. The shadows seemed to stretch and contract, almost alive. That night sleep eluded Claire. Every sound drew her awake, wind howling, branches scraping against the old windows, the distant rumble of thunder. She lay awake, anxiety gnawing at her insides. The text message lingered in her mind like a ghost, haunting her thoughts. "Leave, before it's too late." Did she have a choice? Torn between the instinct to leave and the need to protect her son, she felt the walls closing in. Weeks passed, punctuated by brief, unsettling moments. Ethan grew quieter, more withdrawn. At the dinner table, his gaze drifted past her, as if he saw something lurking just beyond the doorway. "Ethan? Honey, talk to me," Claire prompted one evening, her voice barely above a whisper, the weight of her paranoia bearing down on her. "It watches," he murmured, staring into the distance. "In the attic." A chill ripped through Claire. The attic. She had avoided it after that first frantic night, fearing the darkness hidden among the cobwebs. Yet a compulsion to confront the truth surged. If they were to escape this nightmare, she needed answers. "Let's go see," she said, her voice trembling but determined. Hand in hand, they climbed the creaking staircase. The door to the attic loomed ahead, thick with layers of dust and neglect. Claire reached for the handle, hesitating as the cold metal sent a shock through her. With a deep breath, she swung the door open. The attic was a graveyard of forgotten belongings, shadows twisting through the stacked furniture. Dust motes floated like lost spirits in the slanting light. She scanned the room, pulse quickening as her eyes fell on an old trunk in the corner, its latch gleaming ominously. "Stay close, Ethan." Claire approached the trunk, heart pounding in her ears. She forced the latch open. Dust erupted around her like a smokescreen, and she choked back a cough. Inside lay a collection of old toys, a tattered quilt, and a photo album. As Claire flipped the pages, a cold knot formed in her stomach. The faces inside were twisted, haunted eyes, menacing grins barely concealed. It was like staring into the abyss. Then a picture slipped from the album and fell, barely catching the light. When she bent down to retrieve it, the shadows around her darkened, and something icy swept through the attic. She turned sharply, breath hitching. Ethan! But he was gone. Panic surged as she spun around, searching frantically. "Ethan!" A faint sound echoed from the far corner, the quiet giggle of a child. Claire's blood froze as her mind raced with dread. The attic, once a sanctuary of old memories, had transformed into a sinister space, alive with unseen horrors. "Mummy! Help me!" Claire's heart dropped. The voice wasn't her son's. Fear clawed at her throat as she stepped further into the shadows, the weight of dread bearing down on her like a suffocating blanket. She was not alone. "Claire!" A whisper chilling her to the bone. She turned, looking for the source, realizing too late that she should have left when she had the chance. The door slammed shut behind her, echoing like a death knell. What waited for her in the shadows wouldn't let her go, and she was about to discover just how sinister the truth could be. Claire's breath quickened, panic clawing at her throat. The chilling whisper hung in the air, wrapping around her like a cold hand. She could feel the shadows pressing in, threatening to swallow her whole. "Ethan!" she screamed again, desperation lacing her voice. "It's here, Mommy." The echo from the corner giggled, sultry and sweet, but layered with some unspeakable horror. Claire's heart raced as she fought the instinct to flee. "Stay back!" she shouted, grounding herself, hoping to sound braver than she felt. Taking a tentative step toward the sound, she scanned the dim space. Bits of furniture loomed like grotesque forms, every shadow a lurking monster. The trunk still sat open, its foul contents diving deeper into her psyche. "Where are you?" she cried. The air thickened, oppressing her. Ethan's giggle was gone, replaced by a chorus of sepulchral whispers swirling around her, speaking in dark tongues that dripped with malice. She stumbled backward and collided with the trunk, her fingers brushing against the dust-laden quilt that lay within. She could swear the faces in the photo album watched her with the weight of accusation. "Help me!" The voice returned, closer now, like a breeze brushing against her neck. Panic surged like wildfire. This wasn't Ethan. It couldn't be. "Get away from me!" Claire yelled, the words ripping from her, each syllable trembling with fear. She felt the cold touch of something creeping closer, invading her space. Was it just the attic, filled with the cries of old memories, or something more insidious? Suddenly the darkness shifted. A figure lurked just beyond the dim light. She could feel its eyes boring into her. "Leave!" it commanded, a harsh hiss that sent shivers cascading down her spine. The voice was gravelly, twisted. Claire's instinct screamed to run, to flee this cursed place before it tightened its grip. "Ethan?" she called again, her voice barely a whisper. Silence blanketed her, thick and suffocating. Then the light flickered. The lone bulb overhead gave a feeble hum before the darkness surged like a living thing. Abruptly, Claire's phone vibrated violently in her pocket, jarring her from her frantic trance. Heart racing, she snatched it out, but the screen was devoid of life, just a faded number she didn't recognize. A loud thump reverberated from the rafters above, and the shadows flickered. Claire froze. That was not just the wind. The attic seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting, hungry for something else. "Mommy!" a voice cried out again, and it sounded strangely far away. The sorrowful echo tugged at her, pulling her deeper into the abyss. Could it be her son? She had to find him. With newfound resolve, she stepped away from the trunk, heart pounding like a war drum, and moved towards the darkened corner the giggling had originated from. Her hands reached out, trembling in the darkness. Then, as if a curtain ripped open, she caught a glimpse of a small figure crouched down, face buried in the shadows. "Ethan!" she gasped. Determined, she rushed forward, only to collide with an invisible barrier, a wall of cold horror that pushed her back. "Mommy!" The figure shifted, and the voice morphed into a scream, high and piercing, echoing through the attic. Claire's instincts kicked in, fear compelling her to escape. She turned just as the attic door creaked open, light spilling in like salvation. But turning back, she saw the figure rising, dark hair hanging in matted strands. It grinned at her, a wicked, knowing smile that chilled her to the bone. In that moment, Claire realized the truth. The attic wasn't just a hiding place, it was a trap. With one desperate sprint, she lunged toward the door, heart pounding, but as she reached for the handle, it slammed shut before her. Trapped with the entity in the flickering shadows, she was no longer just a mother, she was prey. As she pressed her forehead against the cold wood, she could feel it edging closer, its breath hot against her neck. "You should have left when you had the chance," it whispered, pulling her deeper into a nightmare she might never escape. But as the shadows closed in, a flicker of light caught her eye, a glimmer of hope. Or was it another illusion to lead her into despair? She had to choose her path, and whatever she decided would determine whether she would find her son or become lost in the dark forever. Claire's head spun, a whirlwind of fear and confusion. The whispered breaths behind her were like ropes tightening around her throat. Time slowed as she pressed against the door, panting, the cold wood absorbing her warmth, grounding her in this nightmarish reality. She glanced back once more. The figure was closer, its grinning face now fully visible, Ethan's features twisted into something grotesquely familiar. "Mommy, help me," it cooed. But the words hung in the air, drenched in mockery. It shifted, shadows spilling from its form, thick and alive, creeping toward her. "No!" she shouted, the protest tearing from her throat like a wounded animal. The light at the door flickered once more, a heartbeat in the oppressive darkness. In her mind, memories of her son danced, his laugh, his tiny hands reaching for her. Was it wrong to hope it was him standing there? Yet a heavy dread clung to her heart, a harbinger of the truth. She deliberately inhaled, steeling herself. The light, an escape, a chance. "Ethan," she pleaded, feigning bravery, "if that's really you, come to me." A low, throaty chuckle spewed from the thing before her, sending chills skittering down her spine. "You think I'm your boy?" It toyed with her, relishing her anguish. "He's gone, lost to the dark." With each beat of her heart, despair deepened. She couldn't lose hope. Shaking, Claire turned and pounded on the door, fists bruising against the solid frame. "Let me out! Help! Someone! Please!" Her voice cracked, desperation echoing in the hollow space. The entity laughed, a low rumble that vibrated through the air. "No one can hear you. You're all alone. Forever." The laughter faded, absorbed by the thick, suffocating shadows that wrapped around her like a net. Tears streamed down Claire's cheeks. "I won't let you take me," she whispered, summoning resolve from deep within. Gathering her strength, she spun back towards the entity, adrenaline surging. "I will find my son!" She hurled the quilt from the trunk over her shoulder, an act of defiance. It fluttered in the air, breaking the inertia, revealing a hidden glimmer of metal. A rusted old key nestled beneath. Could it be? Hope ignited with that single sight. Claire's trembling fingers snatched the key, its weight strange and comforting, the entity's form twisted and writhed, its grin now morphing into a snarl. "You think that can save you? I won't let you stop me!" She rushed back to the door, breathless and frenzied, fumbling the key into the lock. The whispers crescendoed, clawing at her, pulling at her sanity. She turned the key, holding her breath, a prayer escaping her heart. The lock clicked, loud in the silence, a sound that rattled her very bones. In the split second before she pushed the door open, she felt the entity's grip on her retreating. But then another voice surged through the chaos, a child's voice, melodic and full of life, calling her from the darkness. "Mommy! Help me!" Claire's blood ran cold again, fear splintering her heart. Was it really Ethan, or another ruse from the thing behind her? It didn't matter. With every ounce of will, she flung the door wide open. Light flooded in, blinding and sweet, but behind her the shadows howled, a guttural rage spilling forth, seeking to reclaim its prey. Just as she stepped across the threshold, icy fingers brushed against her back, a warning of what could have been. "Run!" she shouted, scrambling into the hall, the door slamming shut behind her. She was alive, but what lay ahead was unknown. The walls pulsed, the very air crackling with a malignant energy. And then she heard it again, Ethan's laughter, musical and bright, dancing through the hallway. She followed, rushing down the stairs, heart racing, for wherever it led, she was willing to gamble everything for her son. But as she reached the bottom, she caught sight of a door ajar, the whispers now a cacophony wrapping around her. "Ethan!" she cried, feeling her lungs constrict. Had her escape only just begun? Or was it another trap set by a darkness she could barely comprehend? And then silence fell, heavy and thick as the door creaked wider. What lay beyond it? The answer could lead her to salvation or doom. Claire hesitated at the threshold, dread warring with the flickering hope in her chest. The door loomed like a gaping maw, dark and foreboding. Ethan's laughter echoed, but now it twisted into something unrecognizable, a haunting melody layered with despair. "Mommy!" But was it real? Or just another trick, another taunt wrapped in the illusion of her child? She clutched the key tightly, its rusted edges digging into her palm. The whispers morphed into a cacophony, jarring and accusing. They wrapped around her, suffocating, pulling her deeper into the shadows. Swallowing her fear, Claire pushed the door wider. Inside, a dim light flickered, revealing a room that felt all too familiar. Toys lay scattered on the floor. Ethan's toys. The sight tore at her heart, A small truck, its paint chipped, rolled as if nudged by a ghostly hand. "Ethan!" Her voice trembled as she stepped inside. The atmosphere was thick with an electric charge, a sense of displacement pressing down upon her. She felt the walls pulse as if they were alive, breathing along with her growing panic. "Over here, Mommy." The voice was sweet, innocent. Claire followed it, heart racing, rushing toward the far corner where a small figure stood. But as she drew closer, the boy turned, and her breath caught in her throat. It wasn't Ethan. The child had wild, unkempt hair, eyes wide and hollow, filled with a sense of emptiness that sent icy fingers crawling up Claire's spine. "You've come to play!" he shrieked with a twisted grin. "No, where's my son?" Claire backed away, the air around her thickening like molasses. The room seemed to constrict, shadows grasping her ankles, trying to pull her down. The boy laughed. An echo of Ethan's laughter, morphed and wrong. A suffocating weight clung to her, crushing the air from her lungs. "Leave me alone," she shouted, spinning around to flee, but the door slammed shut, trapping her. Heart pounding, she raced to the window, clawed at the latch, but it wouldn't budge. "Mommy, come play!" The words transformed, a monstrous growl underlying the childlike innocence. With each call, the walls seemed to close in more tightly, the darkness wrapping around her, insistent and consuming. The shadows danced, morphing into cruel faces that whispered her name in mocking tones. "Ethan!" she cried, despair flooding her veins. Forcing breath into her lungs, she turned back, prepared to confront the spectre of the boy. "Where's Ethan?" But the figure began to dissolve into dark tendrils, melting into the floor, revealing a trapdoor. It beckoned to her, whimpering, an echo of her lost son. "What have you done with him?" The echoes grew louder, drowning her with memories, snippets of light and laughter, her son's genuine smile. If she followed the whispers, would it lead her back to him, or further into the darkness? With trembling fingers, she opened the trapdoor, a musty air billowing out, heavy with the scent of decay. As she peered into the abyss, a scream mingled with the whispers, a chilling reminder that some doors should never be opened. Then, from the corner of her eye, she glimpsed a flicker, the outline of a familiar figure standing just beyond the dark. "Mommy, help me." Was it real? As Claire's heart raced, she took a step forward into the darkened passageway, uncertainty clawing at her mind. One wrong move could mean losing everything. Was she about to find her son, or stumble into the maw of something far more sinister? The pull of the shadows grew stronger, inviting her deeper, and in that moment she knew nothing was as it seemed. What awaited her below? Claire's heart thundered as she descended the creaking steps into the darkness, each one echoing in the silence. The air was thick with mold and decay, an invisible weight pressing down on her as she moved deeper into the gloom. She felt the walls close in, every inch of her screaming to turn back, yet the desperate call of her son pulled her forward. "Mommy!" The voice was faint but unmistakable, drifting through the shadows. As she reached the bottom of the stairs, she was greeted by a singular room, a cellar that felt colder than the rest of the house. Flickering light cast grotesque shapes against the walls, twisting into menacing figures that seemed to watch her with hungry eyes. "Ethan!" she called out, her voice barely breaking the silence, swallowed almost immediately by the oppressive darkness. The sense of dread clawed at her insides, tightening like a vice. The whispering shadows wrapped around her, murmuring her name, taunting her growing despair. "Mommy, help me!" The voice came again, clearer now, and her heart leaped. She turned quickly, scanning the room for the source. Her eyes landed on an old, moth-eaten doll sitting in the corner, its eyes staring at her with an unsettling familiarity. "Mommy, I'm scared," it said, its voice eerily similar to Ethan's. "Stop it!" Claire screamed, feeling the noose of madness tighten. "You're not my son!" The room seemed to tremble in response, the shadows bending and contorting, twisting into figures of horror, stretching out toward her. Suddenly, the doll's face shifted from innocence to a horrific grin. "Oh, but I am—" It hissed, the voice now a cacophony of laughter and cries, all jumbled together, mingled with her son's sweet voice. Claire staggered back, but there was nowhere to go. The trapdoor slamming shut above her had sealed her fate. "Come play," it repeated, a chorus of dark laughter swelling around her. She felt her way along the wall, her fingers brushing against the damp, cold bricks as she fought to keep her breathing steady. The air grew sharper, biting into her skin like icy fingers. Just when she thought her sanity might crack, she heard it again. The familiar sound of her son's laughter drifting through the oppressive darkness, leading her toward a dank corner. "Ethan!" she called out, desperation lacing her voice. It was a fragile thread pulling her forward, and she was willing to follow it even deeper into whatever lay ahead. The shadows flickered, revealing a doorway half hidden by cobwebs. She surged toward it, every step a mix of hope and terror. Standing at the threshold, she found yet another passage, the air thick with whispers, taunts filling her ears as she crouched to look inside. A small room awaited, seemingly untouched by the horrors around it. It was filled with her son's drawings, crayon art of her and Ethan, each image marred by dark smudges that twisted the warmth into a grotesque representation of a nightmare. "Mommy, help!" The voice rang out again, this time behind her, vulnerable and small. Heart racing, Claire turned but found only the shadows, blacker than before, stretching and coiling. The laughter grew louder, drowning her in confusion. Instinct fueled her as she darted through the narrow opening into the childlike abyss. The room engulfed her, and in that instant she felt a surge of something, a dark, malevolent energy born from the hallway behind her. "What are you?" she whispered to the darkness. And then she heard it, a rustling, a scuttling noise coming from the shadows. Something was moving, slithering closer, ready to reveal itself. Just as hope wrested control, she felt a chill crawl up her spine, turning her blood cold. Then the door behind her slammed shut, sealing off any chance of retreat. "Mommy, it's time to play." The voice transformed, echoing all around, the walls vibrating with a dreadful resonance. Claire stood frozen, dread coiling around her feet like a serpent, knowing she had stepped into something much darker. Who or what was waiting for her in those shadows? Could her son still be out there, or had she walked away from everything she loved, chasing a phantom? As the darkness surged, Claire understood. The real horror was just beginning. What awaited her in the shadows beckoned even as she hesitated in uncertainty. Claire's breath hitched in her throat, the stale air splintering into shards of fear. The laughter echoed off the walls, wrapping around her like a smothering blanket. It was old, twisted, and undeniably familiar. It clawed at her memories of laughter shared and games played. "Ethan!" she cried again, her voice fractured and desperate. Each syllable felt like it splintered in the darkness, consumed before it could reach her child. The shadows shifted restlessly. A low rumble pulsated through the air. Claire could feel the malevolence pressing in, and she took a trembling step forward, reluctant and terrified. In that moment, she thought she saw a flicker of movement, a fleeting glimpse of something small, something vibrant, as if a child had darted past the periphery of her vision. "Ethan!" she screamed, panic surging anew within her. "Where are you?" There was only silence, oppressive and unyielding, save for the distant scuttling that now seemed to come from every angle. The noises clawed at the edges of her mind, a symphony of dread that crescendoed with each beat of her racing heart. Suddenly behind her, the doll, a grotesque mockery of innocence, began to shift. From its twisted mouth, the laughter bubbled forth, a sickly, sweet sound that churned Claire's stomach. "Mummy, it's time to play. With your friends," it hissed, the eyes glinting in the darkness, hungry. Fear wrapped around her like chains, suffocating. She turned to face it fully, but the doll was no longer alone. Shadowy forms emerged from the recesses of the cellar, swaying, undulating, until it felt as if the darkness itself was alive. Each face leered at her, a grotesque parody of the children she once knew. "No," Claire whispered, stepping back. "You can't be real." But the laughter crescendoed, filling her head until it felt ready to burst. She could almost discern the faces of her son's friends, lost and twisted, trapped in these dark reflections. Their mouths moved in a synchronized rhythm, chanting, come play with us." The walls shivered in response, as if the very house was alive, echoing the children's sinister invitation. She didn't understand what was happening, but sensed that every step forward was pulling her deeper into a web of despair. She stumbled back, and as if sensing her vulnerability, the figures lunged, shadows ripping through the space with ghostly arms outstretched. Claire darted sideways, her heart hammering, desperation fueling her flight. It felt like the shadows were in pursuit, quickening at her every move. Suddenly she beheld another doorway, faintly illuminated by a flickering light. It looked like a fever dream, shimmering as if it offered escape. With no time to think, she sprinted towards it, pain lancing through her legs as she pushed herself harder. The laughter expanded, warping into shrieks, chasing after her as she closed the distance. Claire threw herself through the threshold just as something cold grazed her shoulder, a whisper that clung to her skin like ice. The door slammed shut behind her, cutting the noise off abruptly. She landed hard on a wooden floor, her breath ragged. As she lay there, the room came into focus, dimly lit, filled with more drawings. But these had words beneath them. "I see you," they read. "Come play with us, forever." The shadows around her twisted, darting into corners as her mind raced. Who had drawn these? The sickening thought crashed into her like a wave. The truth wasn't just specters of children. It was something worse. Delusions melted into reality, echoing back through the deep chasm of her senses. Somewhere, lurking in this nightmare, was the possibility that Ethan had joined them. Panic surged anew as the air thickened. Behind her, the outlines of familiar figures merged with the shadows. "Mommy!" The voice surged again, softer this time, filtering through the fear. Claire braced herself, heart pounding in her ears. "Ethan!" she called into the silence. But the silence hung, heavy, like a pregnant pause hinting at doom yet to come. The question loomed. Could she solve this mystery before it consumed her whole? A low growl reverberated through the walls, answering her unasked query. And in that darkness, with that dreadful echo, Claire realized her hope was rapidly fading. What awaited her beyond the door now loomed large, drawing her with an insidious pull, as shadows twisted into familiar shapes, beckoning her to step deeper into despair. The shadows inched closer, whispering promises of play and laughter, tainted remnants of joy, now twisted into something vile. Claire's heart raced, a furious drumbeat echoing her mounting terror. She pushed herself up, struggling to breathe amidst the thick, suffocating air, heavy with dread. "Ethan!" she shrieked again, desperation clawing at her throat. She had to find him. The darkness writhed, baring its fangs. The drawings loomed large on the walls, each a testament to something horrific. Children's scrawls transformed into menacing symbols, faces warped in a hellish glee. "Forever!" they promised in silent screams. How many had been lost here? Claire stumbled backwards, her hands brushing against the cold wood, searching for a way out. The growl reverberated again, low and rumbling, like a beast awakening from a long slumber. It sent tremors through her, dispelling the shadows momentarily as she caught a glimpse of movement, a flicker of white against the dark. "Mommy, help me." That voice. Ethan. With newfound urgency, Claire pivoted toward the source, focusing through the haze of fear. "Ethan, where are you?" But the shadows danced menacingly, shifting their forms just enough to keep her disoriented. The walls pulsed, breathing like a living creature, closing in, suffocating. She fought against the growing panic as she edged closer to a corner where light flickered. Then she saw him, small and vulnerable, just a few feet away, crouched behind a tangle of shadows that writhed as if alive. "Ethan!" she shouted. His little face peeked out, eyes wide with terror, yet void of the innocence she remembered. "Mommy," he whispered, trembling. "They won't let me go." Claire's heart shattered. The sight of her son trapped in this nightmare brought tears to her eyes. "We can leave, Ethan. Come to me." Yet the shadows moved, absorbing light like hungry beasts, encircling Ethan, their laugh morphing into hisses. She sprinted toward him, but as she reached out, the shadows recoiled, protecting their prize. Claire's fingers grazed nothing but cold air, a crushing despair settling in her chest. "No, no!" Claire shouted, panic erupting. "I won't let you take him." The figures shuddered, their eyes glimmering, taunting her. "Come play forever." They chimed in teasing harmony, their voices dripping with malice. Ethan's small hands reached out, but the shadows snatched him back just as quickly. "Mommy!" he cried, fear cracking his voice. Claire lunged forward again, reckless desperation fueling her movements. "Ethan, hold on!" Her mind raced. How could she break this curse? What dark magic bound her son to these horrors? She felt an unseen force tightening around her, threatening to pull her into their realm. Time seemed to fracture, each moment stretched into eternity as dread dripped deeper into her bones. Fingers of shadow grazed her face, cold as death, and she gasped, the realization that they were feeding off her fear, growing stronger the more terrified she became. She couldn't let that happen. A surge of defiance welled within her. "Enough!" Claire screamed. "You will not take him!" The shadows flickered, recoiling momentarily from her sudden ferocity. Ethan's eyes lit up with hope. "Mommy!" he called out, voice trembling. But before she could respond, the shadows lunged, roaring with fury. "Playtime is over!" Claire yanked on the last vestiges of her will, her heart pounding as adrenaline coursed through her veins. She wasn't finished yet. As the shadows closed in, she spotted something glimmering at her feet. A shard of glass, a jagged piece that pulsated with faint light. Without thinking, she seized it, clutching the makeshift weapon tightly. "Let go of him!" she roared, stepping between Ethan and the encroaching darkness, sword-like resolve taking root. Silence fell, thick and suffocating. The shadows hesitated, flickering like dying embers. In that fragile moment, Claire realized the power she sought was within her, but just as clarity illuminated her thoughts, a shriek pierced the air, dragging her back into the void of terror. "Mommy!" The shadows lunged, and Claire steeled herself for the battle ahead. Could she protect Ethan, or would darkness claim them both? Her heart raced as she prepared to face the forces holding her child captive. One final moment of clarity screamed through her. This was no longer just about survival, it was about breaking the cycle. And outside the door, she felt the pulse of something ancient, something biding its time. Would the darkness finally reveal its true nature? Claire gripped the shard of glass tighter, feeling its cold, hard edge bite into her palm. The shadows hesitated at her fierce stance, swirling impatiently, as if they were mere puppets on a string. With a growl that reverberated through the air, they surged forward, more ravenous than before, and Claire's blood ran cold. "Stay back!" she shouted, brandishing the glass like a talisman of hope. The flickering shadows paused, the dark eyes gleaming with an unsettling curiosity. Was she willing to fight back? "Mommy!" Ethan's plea cut through the tension, drawing her focus. His small frame trembled, caught in the web of darkness, his little body barely visible among the shifting forms of black. Claire felt her heart twist painfully. In a heartbeat, the shadows lunged again, claws outstretched. Claire's instincts took over. She swiped the glass wildly, the sharp edge slicing through the shadows. To her shock, the darkness hissed and recoiled, retreating as if stung. "Yes, I can help you, Ethan," she cried, desperate to make him feel her presence, to remind him she was still there. But the shadows shifted, flaring outwards and then pulling back, revealing deeper layers of darkness behind. Claire caught faint glimpses of what lay beyond. A twisted landscape, black trees reaching towards a blood-red sky, and shadows writhing like serpents. With each flicker, she felt the air chill further, and fear's icy fingers wrapped around her heart. The creature's growl returned, and it was closer now, vibrating the floor beneath her. She remembered the stories she had read, things lurking just beyond the veil of reality, feeding on fear and despair. Had they come for her, or were they after Ethan? "Ethan!" she shouted again, voice cracking. "Hold on! I'm coming!" But as she fought to step closer, the shadows swirled around her feet, binding her to the ground. Panic welled within her. "Not now!" she urged herself, frantically tugging at the shadows. "Let me go!" They tugged harder, their grip tightening. The glass in her hand felt heavier, almost like the weight of an anchor. But with one desperate shout, she raised it high above her head. "Get away from my son!" she yelled, smashing the glass down toward the ground where the darkness festered. A brilliant flash of light erupted from the shard, blinding and pure. The shadows screeched, thrashing violently as the light burned through their forms, forcing them to retreat. Claire felt the energy swell around her, invigorating, powering her resolve. For the first time she no longer felt like prey. "Take that!" she roared, the defiance fueling her. "You want to play? Let's play!" But as the shadows vanished momentarily, the main bulk of darkness remained, swirling ominously, and from within a larger beast began to emerge, a grotesque silhouette with too many limbs and too many eyes. Claire could barely breathe, as a multitude of hisses filled the air. "Mommy!" Ethan called again, this time softer, almost drowned in the cacophony of terror. "I see you, Ethan. I won't let them take you." Claire's voice held firm, but inside her heart quaked. She needed a plan. The protection she felt from the glass wouldn't last long. Glancing desperately to the flickering light surrounding her, she noticed shapes moving. Other souls, trapped within the shadows, their faces stretched in agony, mouths endlessly screaming. They were calling out for help, their voices blending into a cacophony of despair that sent shivers racing up her spine. With her heart pounding, Claire stared at the horrific creature that was now fully formed before her. "What are you?" she demanded, pushing back her fear. "What do you want?" The monster loomed closer, every eye locking onto her with a hypnotic gaze. It opened its mouth, a void of shadow that seemed to pull at her very essence. "Forever," it whispered, the voice crawling under her skin, cold and damp. Claire staggered back, shaking her head vigorously. "No, I won't be part of your forever." But even as the shadows pressed in again, darker and hungrier, she felt a flicker of courage ignite within. She had to make a choice. Would she remain bound by fear, or carve a path forward for Ethan and herself in a world determined to keep them prisoners? The shadows lunged again, and this time certainty washed over her like a flood. She could fight. As the darkness enveloped her once more, she gripped the glass tightly, ready to confront whatever horror awaited. Would they break, or would she be caught forever in their embrace? With one last desperate attempt, she lunged forward, screaming, "I will not lose my son!" But just as she plunged into the heart of darkness, a shadowy hand shot out, blocking her way. "Only one shall escape," it whispered, famished eyes glinting with malice. And with that, Claire realized, this wasn't just about saving Ethan. She was battling for her very soul. As the darkness churned around Claire like a living entity, she felt the chill of fear wrap tighter around her. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, pounding with urgency, as the beast's many eyes bore into her. "Only one shall escape." It hissed again, the words curling around her neck like a noose. "No!" Claire shouted, fury igniting within her despite the terror threatening to consume her. "I won't let you take my son!" In that moment, she grasped the glass shard tighter, its edge a beacon of hope amidst the encroaching void. With every ounce of strength and courage she had left, Claire plunged the shard into the darkness, letting the light erupt from it like a brilliant star piercing through the night. A blistering wave of pure energy surged through her veins, pushing back against the shadows that clawed at her. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in agony, their dark forms twisting and writhing as they fought against the light. Claire felt it. She was gaining ground, but she had to focus. "Ethan!" she cried, searching desperately through the splintered dark. "Hold on! I'm coming for you!" The thrumming mass of shadows shivered, and for a moment she swore she saw a flicker of her son's small form at the edges, caught and safe, yet terrified. She could sense that he was close, and she pressed forward, determined. "Together, Ethan! We can break free!" she shouted, channeling all her love to her voice, pouring her fears into the light. "Mummy!" Ethan's tiny voice cut through the chaos, and Claire's resolve solidified. The murky shadows pivoted to envelop her once more, but the light was growing now, brighter and more oppressive. With each breath she fed it, infusing the growing strength with her unwavering hope. The monstrous silhouette lurched forward, but Claire stood tall. "You don't own us," she yelled defiantly, thrusting the shard once again. The dark entity screeched, the noise tearing through both the shadowy realm and Claire's heart. In that critical moment, the darkness seemed to fracture. Through the shattered remnants a path revealed itself, a dim corridor that shimmered with the light of her defiance. Claire dashed toward it, summoning all her strength, eyes focused on the flickering glow of her son at the end. "Ethan!" she shouted, and then the light surged, wrapping around her like a cocoon, pulling her forward. She felt warmth envelop her as if she were being born anew, leaving the suffocating darkness behind. Running, she reached the narrow opening, breath coming in quick gasps as the shadows clawed at her retreating form, unfurling their claws in impotent rage. "No!" the creature howled. But Claire was unstoppable now, fueled by love and determination as she raced toward the light where Ethan waited. "Mommy!" Ethan cried, his small body trembling, yet oh so beautiful, bathed in light. In that split second, Claire wrapped her arms around her son, squeezing him to her chest, feeling the warmth of his embrace chase away the remaining shadows in her soul. "Mummy, I was scared," he whimpered, looking up at her with wide, innocent eyes. "I know, but we're safe now. I'm here. I will always be here." Claire held him tightly, the bond between them glowing brightly, keeping the remnants of darkness at bay. Together, they turned, facing the beast that had tormented them. Claire lifted the shard one last time, channeling the strength of her love. Sunlight brightening at her command, the shadows fell back, destroying themselves against the brilliance. "You will never have us," she declared, her voice ringing with the certainty that surged through her. With a final clash, the corridor erupted with light, consuming the last remnants of darkness. The beast howled, but the echo faded into nothingness, replaced by piercing silence. Claire opened her eyes, finding herself back in the attic, sunlight streaming through the slanted windows. Dust motes danced, seemingly untouched by the horror that had unfolded. She looked around, disoriented, but safe. Ethan was there, still in her arms, looking up with curious eyes. Claire felt a wave of relief wash over her. The shadows were gone. They had triumphed. "I'm so glad we found each other," she whispered, brushing the hair from Ethan's forehead. "Can we go home now?" he asked, a timid smile forming. Claire nodded, heart swelling with love. "Yes, sweetheart, we can finally start fresh." As they exited the attic hand in hand, the house felt lighter, as though it was shedding its dark past, and they stepped into a new beginning, one filled with the hope that love can conquer even the deepest shadows. With the door closing behind them, Claire realized that while some scars remain, they had found strength in each other. They would build a life unbound from fear, filled with laughter and hope. The past was behind them. The future awaited. And as they walked into the light, a sense of peace enveloped them both, a true victory against the darkness that would forever remind them of the strength of their bond, one that could never be broken. Now that you've journeyed with Claire and Ethan through this harrowing tale, there's something incredibly important you need to do. You need to subscribe immediately to ensure you don't miss our next exclusive stories that will thrill and chill you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us share these tales with more true fans like you. And flood the comments section with your reactions, theories about the ending, or just let us know where you're watching from. We truly want to hear all about it. Finally, do not wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything, and only the most dedicated fans understand the importance of keeping this channel alive. Do it now,